On today's video, it's time to talk about the state of Rise of Kingdoms for 2021. In this video, we're going to go over 10 items and general subjects that will let you know what's the status of Rise of Kingdoms as a game as of right now, what you should be expecting in the future, as well as a little bit of my concerns when it comes to things happening in this game and much, much more. So sit back, slap a like on the video, and let's go. Hey there YouTube, welcome back to Gekko Gaming as we are in the jumper account that's very, very meaningful for this State of Rise of Kingdoms video. I'm going to start off by saying that if you're looking for me to start cussing out Lilith and telling them how much of a bad company they are and a place for you guys to indulge in the toxicity of frustration, drop a dislike on the video and dip. You're not going to get that here. I'm looking to give you an objective view on how I see Rise of Kingdoms as of right now without cussing Lilith out, without caring too much for anything. And remind you, I'm not a sponsored content creator no more. So any of you dumb people out there going, oh, Lilith tell him what to say. He's not talking the truth. He's saying what they want to tell us. He's a sellout. Drop a dislike and leave. You're a moron. With that being said, let's get going, start talking about these 10 subjects, which we're going to break down into bigger categories and then fit those categories into subjects in the game. These categories are devaluation of items in the game and of generally in the game devaluation overall, increased pressure of spending and requirement of spending to be able to participate in events. From there, we're going to go into turnaround of Lilith when it comes to fixing bugs, listening to feedback, so forth and so on. And finally, a little bit of my thoughts on the health of the game. Is it really dying? It isn't, and I'll tell you why right at the end. So, our first subject is devaluation of commanders and equipment. We've been seeing it happen through 2020. More and more things making it so that it's easier to get commanders and it's easier to get equipment. Now, for someone like myself, getting equipment for cheaper, getting more commanders for cheaper sounds great. But you got to remember that when you start devaluing something too much, the reason you love your legendary commanders as much as you do, and the reason you think about the legendary commanders and you pick the legendary commanders and you choose your path in Rise of Kingdoms is because it is difficult to get these golden boys right there. Once it starts getting very easy for you to get commanders and for you to do things, three things are going to happen. Those of us who grinded our butts off to get here or spent a lot are going to be like, why did I spend $1,000 on a commander, which now you can get for $200? Why did you spend as a free-to-play player 7 to 8 hours a day gathering gems so you can spin the wheel when nowadays a free-to-play player can do it in 20 minutes? And so when you're talking about devaluing items and devaluation of stuff, you got to be very careful. The reason Lilith are devaluing things as of right now is because they are looking to maintain this game as a growing game and not allowing it to die. And for that, they must get to a point in which newer players can compete with older players as us older players are starting to migrate to younger kingdoms and wreck native populations. Someone like Dragothian, for example, has been doing everything he can, give or take, to get Kingdom 916 to be not only his mega kingdom of mega people that migrated, but also of natives. But realistically speaking, he wrecked 904, he wrecked that KVK kingdom in KVK 111, and those newer players are all potentially not going to enjoy the game as much because someone like his kingdom came in and destroyed everything. Now, I don't blame him. He's not the problem in this whole scenario. I actually really like his 916 project, and I watched all night long him stream as well as the wars in 111 and had a lot of fun seeing him build this community of a massively awesome kingdom. But it is indeed a problem when someone like him is expertising Tamaris because he doesn't have anything else to expertise, right? And so that is a problem for Lilith. Lilith need to figure out how they can allow newer players to combat a 916 without quitting the game. Or else more 916s will start popping up in the 900s and the 1000s, and the newer players will be deterred from playing the game. And so what ends up happening is they are making things cheaper and cheaper for newer players. They're adding they're adding equipment wheels and bundles for KVK starts and all that stuff to get them to catch up as quickly as they can so they can put up with the older players. This tells me that Lilith is now not in a growth mode. They're not introducing more things, but rather they're trying to maintain the game at a living pattern. The way you know a game is dying is essentially if they stop doing updates on a regular basis like they have been. If kingdoms are not created as fast as they have been. If we start seeing only one kingdom every 2-3 days instead of 2 to 3 kingdoms every day, that's when it's starting to get a little bit problematic. And for Lilith, they're doing everything they can to essentially make it so that newer players stay. They want to retain players. Player retention is currently the number one goal of Lilith as far as I can see. And that hurts us older players because for us, it's like, holy Lord, we're getting the egg, hunt for treasure, wheel, mightiest governor, VIP shop, and all of this within 2 weeks. For me, this was the biggest spending month ever in Rise of Kingdoms, and I'm already a few $1,000, if not more, into the hole. So for me, it's very painful, but for a brand new player that has the budget to do so, these events just help them catch up so much quicker. So devaluation of items means that Lilith are currently at the state of trying to make sure that the new players are comfortable playing against the old players, which tells me the game is still in a growing pattern. So equipment comes at a cost, and the devaluation as a whole comes at a cost. When it comes to commanders, the cost is a bit lesser because more people have more legendary commanders, which means crazier fights and everybody can use different commanders, which is not the worst thing on earth. But the problem happens when you start getting a lot of free-to-play players with a ton of epic specialized talents, equipment, because while I do think that they should have that availability and I do think that the grind should be there, you're creating a situation in which you're going to now have to make the gap between the big pay-to-win players and the free-to-play players even bigger, and we saw that in these sets. Now, these sets are ridiculously easy to get relatively with all these events. People are getting blueprints for this left and right, and you're going to see Lilith introduce new equipment that is even crazier and more expensive because they're catering for us to keep spending money. And when they devalue things, it means that they need to bring new things that are more valuable to take place of the thing that was devalued. And that is the consistent cycle we're going to be seeing in this game. Devaluation of items, newer items showing up. Devaluation of items, newer items showing up. And that's essentially how the cycle of spending happens in Rise of Kingdoms. If they devalue items too much, but they don't introduce also newer items, that's when things get problematic because it means that at this point, they're not really looking forward to, they're not seeing any way in which they can entice us to continue to play the game, but rather than they're making things cheaper for newer players to continually get in rather than older players to stay. So Lilith are in a big problem because they're in a point where they need to cater to the older players so that they don't get frustrated and quit, but at the same time, and make as much money as they can out of those players, but at the same time, maintain the newer players in the game, or else the game dies. And so point number 3, and we'll call it point number 3 and 4, is their attempt on making something new item, and that is crystal researches. When crystal researches first came out, they were the new item, the hot thing, the expensive thing, and they still very much are. I spent a total of $500 on, give or take, plus minus, maybe a little bit more, a little bit less, but I bought all the pop-up bundles that I had available. My mine is level 25 and crystal research building is 23. I bought a full Mountain Warfare and I bought a full Conqueror's Will, and it got me about this far, and that includes doing Bastion quests, which then ended up giving me crystals. And of course, I got Kahar Bone Whistles, which I then hunted and got crystals for free for AP out of. And so I currently hold 1.4 million crystals. I sit somewhere in here, and realistically speaking, to continue is going to be very, very, very expensive for me as I need to finish up economy and the crystal research level 24. By Thursday, that's not going to happen. I'm not going to be spending any more on crystals, and so $500 put me at a competitive stage. The thing about the researches, though, is not the crystals. You all are very focused on the crystals lately and how expensive and hard it is to get them and very hard to get them for free. But once you get them for free, if you can, did you know that every research beyond the level 5 is 1 day and 20 hours per research? That means that if you're not max tech, you don't have research speedups remaining, you're screwed. You're gonna need a lot of research speedups to do these researches. So one of the reasons my jumper kind of got wrecked in Heroic Anthem is because I built the jumper in a way that the jumper was super useful in 541. We expertised the Tel Takeda. We spent a lot of money on getting a Tel Takeda expertised. Then we spent some more money on getting epic equipment done so we can rally at a decent level. And on top of that, pushed to T5s and made sure we have enough T5 cavalry to be able to rally as much as we humanly want. But this account is not fully teched out. And realistically speaking, I need my research speed ups for technology. So what Heroic Anthem introduced essentially is that you must be full tech by the time you're in Heroic Anthem, or else you got to choose between working on your account or working on temporary technology that goes away. And we went from Soluna coins, which were fairly interesting. You could hunt barbarians, get Soluna coins, get extra honor in order to get those extra researches in for your camp or whatever it was at the time. And then everybody would work on it together. It was not only fun because everybody would get the bonuses and it was fairly equal, but also hunting barbarians had a meaning. You get extra honor so you can finish your honor rewards quicker for less time. It was very good, and this went into being very expensive. If you notice the pattern and the development cycle, things start as expensive as they can be, and over time they become cheaper. Why? Because when you pay $100 for something, and tomorrow I tell you you can buy it for $90, you'll be kind of happy that now you can buy it for $90. Hey, $10 off, right? But if you buy something for $100 and tomorrow I tell you you got to spend $110, you're going to be like, why am I spending another $10? It's common sense. You always want to have things get buffed, then get nerfed. You want things to get cheaper, then get more expensive. So the first set of crystal researches was so ridiculously expensive. It's mind-blowing, and it's not sustainable. This account spent a boatload of research speedups on researches. I can tell you an exact number on Wednesday's stream. If you want, just ask me on Wednesday. Come up and ask me in the channel, in the chat. I'll give you the numbers. I have screenshots of the before. And I have enough speedups on the max account to go again. But if you put me at a point where I need to do this 3 or 4 times in a row, I got maybe 2 more in me, and that's it. Maybe that. I don't even think I have 2 more in me, but maybe. And so it becomes a really big problem, but you got to understand that the state of Rise of Kingdoms as of right now is equipment and commanders are getting a bit cheaper. You have potentially coming up into the daily bundles, the ability to choose wheel commanders. We've been having, Card King for a little while now to get more commanders available in the game. Things are getting a little bit more attainable in the commanders and in the equipment department. And the researches is the new crazy expensive thing, which with time should get cheaper. The same can be said about Strife of 8. Strife of 8 is essentially a modified version of KVK Season 1 and 2, which is the map that the vast majority of people say is the best map out there for warring. Although in my opinion, Heroic Anthem definitely plays a good part in terms of war layout of the map, but crystal researchers make it ridiculously expensive. The difference in Strife of 8 is that this time there's no such thing as corner kingdoms anymore. They allow you to pick between 2 kingdoms that you get to fight in a 1v1 rather than be stuck in a situation where you have no choice but to fight a 2v1 scenario. However, the way they've got this set up makes it so that more than one kingdom is supposed to stay in this little thing, and then more than one kingdom is supposed to stay in this little thing. I mean, the map is too small for the quantities of people they want in it, and the zones are too small for the quantities of people they want in it, all the way to the zone 6s, which are a little bit bigger and nicer. And the idea is to filter down kingdoms. We're going to start with 8 camps, and by the time you get into the middle area, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which in theory, all 8 kingdoms could make it to zone 5, but practically it won't happen. More than likely, some kingdoms will take 2 zone 5s and 2 camps will take 2 zone 5s, and someone's going to get screwed. And from there's only 4 zone 6s available, which then they'll fight each other to go to the center. if they don't fight each other until the center, you're essentially saying 4 camps or 4 folks who get camps that can get into here. If they're allies, then they can get more than 2 in a zone, will get into Kingsland. And the problem with this is that it came a bit too late. The next point in this very long video, and I apologize for that, is the development life cycle of Lilith Gaming. You need to understand that as a developer, and I am a software engineer, I'm a senior software engineer in a fairly big company, multi-billion-dollar company. We have over 20,000 developers out there in the world. We work with some of the biggest companies in the world. I promise to you that every single one of you who live either in the United States or Europe or South America work with our systems without you guys even knowing. But the point is, the way development works is there is a backlog of work and they set up a schedule of things that are going to come ahead. I'm working on something today that's going to be out in 2 months. And that's light. There are some situations which I work on something that doesn't go out into the world up until 6 to 8 months later. And so you need to understand that what Lilith are working on today is stuff for the future and not what needs to be fixed today. And the problem with that is that the community expects quick turnaround. Crystals are no good, balance them, let's go. And what you got to realize is that it takes 1 to 2 cycles of Heroic Anthem to get enough data to know that, okay, we need to level this down a little bit. And then it's going to take more time until they find the time to code this in and get this into production, essentially, and into our systems. The problem is the turnaround is too slow. Fixing this map should have happened before Light versus Darkness, before Heroic Anthem. Light versus Darkness was literally like a cheap, dumb way to try to get us happy about a map that really did not work out well at all, considering the only fight was Kingsland, and it was so stupidly laggy that, I mean, people go to Light versus Darkness because they don't want to do Heroic Anthem tech, but if you told them crystal researches were not a thing, I promised you people would pick Heroic Anthem over Light versus Darkness. I think that Strife of 8 is also going to get massively picked. If you ask me, the future of KVKs is Season 1 and 2, Heroic Anthem and Strife of 8 once the crystal researches are properly fixed. We're not going to see Light versus Darkness anymore because there is barely any fights going on in there. Let's be real. And so this is the epitome of what's currently problematic in Rise of Kingdoms. Lilith need a quicker turnaround. Lilith need to be able to invest more into not only developing for the future, but also continually fixing bugs, lag infrastructure, and suggestions and optimizations. They have been doing it, but not at a quick enough rate. And for us that have been playing this for very long, it's starting to get very tiring to wait again and again. Remember, you and I have waited for a very long time for a fix to Heroic Anthem, to Light versus Darkness, to KVK Season 1 and 2 Corner Kingdoms. But the new players coming into Rise of Kingdoms have KVK Season 1 and 2, Light versus Darkness, Heroic Anthem, and Strife of 8 off the bat, right? So the requirement from us for them to do things quicker is problematic, and you got to understand the life cycle of development is much longer than you think. Lilith cannot work today on what you guys want them to fix today, because if they do that, you will not have new content tomorrow. And so if there is no new content tomorrow, the game is not moving forward, and next thing you know, you're like, well, you fixed all the bugs and all the lag, but now I'm doing the same thing over and over. What's going on? Lilith need to find a better balance of developing new things while continually fixing bugs and optimizing the game further. And so we talked about events being crazy hard. We talked about the fact that KVKs are a thing and crystal researches are a thing. The next thing that Lilith need to understand is that we as people, we as players, we need a little bit of a break. Not all of us can spend thousands of dollars in order to re-heal troops over and over and over. And as a matter of fact, the vast majority of us prefer to train troops when it gives us something beyond troops. More than a Mightiest Governor, an event that gives us sculptures, bastion quests, whatever it is that you prefer to train troops on. Most people don't like to just, okay, it's a Tuesday afternoon, good sir. Let me just take a rune and duke and alliance kingdom buff, and let me just splurge 1,000 T5s, because why not? You know what I'm saying? Nobody does that. Well, some people do that, but majority of folks wait for a proper event to train troops. Now, realistically, the way Lilith have KVK cooldowns as of right now is a bit too much. The new system says that every 2 weeks, you're going to get an invite to a new KVK. And you can decline to sign up up to 2 times, but on the third one, you will be automatically signed up. Well, in Kingdom 2, this is our third invite, and it came in today. And there's nothing we can do about it. Now, realistically, we haven't even finished building up back. Realistically, a lot of our folks left Kingdom 2 to do other things and are coming back. But now how are they going to come back if they don't even have time to get the blueprints, to get themselves back, to get the passport pages, to get themselves back in? It's all happening too fast. So now the maximum cooldown between KVKs can be a month and a half, but majority of kingdoms are not going to wait that whole month and a half. I hope they do, but realistically, folks want to fight. And so leadership is going to put themselves at a hard place where they need to figure out, do we do instantly a KVK and give up on it? Do we wait a month and a half and go in again and again? The current system of KVK cooldown is a bit too crazy. I think that at least 3 weeks between every invite is a thing, and that allows people to not see KVK for 2 to 3 months if they choose so. But then if your kingdom chooses not to see KVK for that long and you want to see KVKs further, you can migrate or figure out something, right? At this stage, things are too quick, and recovering from KVKs has become much harder. And then you have scenarios like the folks of 331 that all of you think that a big part of you think that they're cowards and they didn't fight and yada, 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 and all that BS. And none of you are taking into account that these guys destroyed themselves going up against 93 at their peak and just destroyed both 93 and themselves in the process. And they destroyed each other so much that they became allies later on to go fight 341, in which 341 put up a huge fight against them. And again, they had to destroy themselves to beat them. And now you want them to fight Bunny in 254? Like, I'm sure that all of you have billions of dollars and spend thousands a day to rebuild, but you cannot expect of players to go again and again and again and again nonstop. And so the difference between KVKs is a little bit complicated and a big problem in Rise of Kingdoms as of right now. I'm not even going to talk about Osiris League or Ark of Osiris this time because that's a subject that I feel like Lilith just don't realize how much of a golden goose that is if they actually if they actually start paying attention to what the people who cast and understand their event better than they do tell them that is a must. Like, for example, there's no point in everybody using their own commanders. You'll make the game 50 times better if you put all the commanders' expertise like Osiris Invitational. How amazing was V636 a 600 kingdom beating a 52 kingdom in Osiris Invitational? They only managed to do it because they had the same commanders and the same troops. If OV had Zenobia and Nebuchadnezzar, and V636 at best had a few folks who migrated Zenobia, but absolutely wouldn't have had Nebuchadnezzars, they would have got wrecked in 2 games. And no disrespect to V636, it's just how it is. So forget about Osiris. We're going to talk about it on a separate subject. I do want to tell you what I think should be done here. First and foremost, barbarians need to start dropping more stuff. And we're talking more gems, more materials. The material drops are very good, by the way, from barbarians, but we need more. And in Heroic Anthem, crystals. On top of that, we need to stop limiting the barbarian drops to 4 drops. Because guess what? You'll always get resources, you'll always get tomes of knowledge, and you'll always get speed ups. It's the 4th item that occasionally pops up. Very, 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 very rarely you see a 5th item. There's absolutely no reason for them to not drop most of the time 4 items and rarely drop 6, mostly drop 4 and 5, which includes speed ups, tomes of knowledge, resources, materials, gems, and crystals. And the last 3 that I mentioned can be like, a little less easy to get, but still better than it is now. Lilith needs to figure out a way in which players can spend time to gain more currency. And that is more materials, more crystals, more gems, and more everything so that people who want to grind their game can grind their game. Those are the people who later on recommend it to their friends, to their family, to their neighbors. And out of those friends, family, neighbors, someone becomes a spender and they keep recommending it. And then it becomes, that's how you grow this game. At this point, what Lilith need to do is they need to start balancing things out. And we're going to see, I can tell you, we're going to see the crystals coming back down, but something new will be introduced. Because we always take a stick and then a couple of carrots, and then they introduce another stick and a couple of carrots. That's how it works. But complaining and getting mad at it and calling the game dying and yada, 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 never works. Never works. You got to make sure if you can't afford it, then don't buy it. And then they'll see that you're buying less, and therefore that's the data they need. Or, I mean, you can complain all you want. At the end of the day, they'll send you a dev feedback, tell you, yeah, we might do this, and they never do it. Kind of like, we might make AoE not work in buildings, and everybody went, Wee! When it never really happened. And it didn't happen, and it didn't happen, not because everybody went, Wee! Enough for them not to do it. They just said, we might. And when they say we might, it's AKA, we're just saying something for you that you might want to hear. That's pretty much it. We might consider making barbarians drop crystals. We might. And everybody's like, we heard what we wanted to hear. Woo! But it never happens. So do me a favor. Stop listening to the dev feedback. Stop listening to these things, because until you see it in patch notes, it means nothing. The last thing I want to say in this video is that I don't think Rise of Kingdoms is dying. There's more players coming in than players leaving. It is dying for players like myself and a lot of others who have been playing for 800 plus days and are tired of spending and keep spending and keep spending and chasing after it. But the game doesn't die because of the old dogs dying. The game dies when the young dogs die. Humanity grows because the older people make babies, enough babies to replace them, and then they die off. That doesn't kill humanity. The game is the same concept. As long as there is baby players, more baby players than there are adult players dying, Rise of Kingdoms will forever keep living. So 1 year, 2 year, 10 years, it can go for as long as it goes. You'll know when the game is starting to die when the baby players start showing up in a much smaller rate and start quitting at a much higher rate. And Lilith are doing everything they can to make sure that doesn't happen by doing all these things that I talked to you in this video. For now, I'm Gekko. I'm out of here. I appreciate it if some of you drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel. Let me know what you think. I am in Rise of Kingdoms for a while still. I think that this game still has a lot to offer. Lilith definitely have a lot of things to fix, but as long as they keep doing what they're doing, they keep adding content, they keep improving things a bit slower than they should, but still improving things, I think we're going to be just fine. I'm here for the people, and I'm here for the community that we've built here. And I can tell you that I was very disenchanted with this game until I came into 401, and it revived my will to play this game. So don't allow the mechanics to slow you down. There's plenty of awesome communities in Rise of Kingdoms to keep you entertained, happy, and allow you to have this place in the world where you can escape reality and go hunt some barbarians and kill some things. I'll see you all sooner rather than later. Enjoy the rest of your week and have a good one. Peace.